Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference is brought to you by Snowline Gold.
Will 2024 be silver's year? This is Paul Harris for Kitco Mining at the Vancouver Resource Investors Conference. And joining me this morning to discuss this is Keith Neumeyer, CEO and President of First Majestic Silver. Keith, welcome back to Kitco.
Good seeing you again, Paul.
Well, thank you. Now, let's start off talking about 2023 for silver. What were the highlights and lowlights of the year for you from your point of view?
You know, I think that silver has just really struggled for the last couple of years, and it's hard to really understand why, other than I think there's a view out in the marketplace that, you know, we're going into a worldwide recession. And even though the supply-demand fundamentals for the metal look extremely good, last year the industry produced about 830 million ounces of silver, and we consumed as a human race about 1.2 billion ounces. So that's a pretty interesting supply-demand fundamentals. Yet the metal just can't seem to, get a bid, which surprises me. I've been talking to shareholders all day, and I get that question from shareholders. Why isn't silver prices moving? And I look at copper as a bit of a signal, and I noticed that copper prices have been quite weak as well over the last couple of quarters, and I think that's most likely affecting silver.
It does seem to reflect the dual nature of silver. One day it may be a monetary asset, the next day it's an industrial commodity, and silver seems to be tracking towards the industrial commodity at the moment. The gold price is riding high, it hit a record price in US dollars, but silver hasn't sort of kept track with that.
Yeah, I see it every day, and I can't really come up with an explanation why.
So 2024 is underway, and silver's struggling to sort of break through the sort of $23 per ounce figure. What will it take for silver to get that meaningful move higher?
I think it's just sentiment, quite frankly. I don't think, the supply-demand fundamentals are fantastic. This year, the Silver Institute's estimating 1.4 billion ounces of silver is going to be consumed in 2024. That's an amazingly large number. We only broke through 1 billion ounces of consumption 2 years ago, and it's a 40% move. And you're looking at two industries like the solar panel industry, the electric car industry, are now consuming about a third of the annual supply of silver. These industries didn't really exist for the most part a decade ago. So, what other, drivers do we need to drive the price up to $30 and higher? I don't know. I think the fundamentals are definitely there. I just personally think it's a sentiment issue.
That's a phenomenal amount of metal, that increase you just mentioned there. As you mentioned, primary supply is the market's in deficit, and so where's that extra silver coming from? Is it retail investors cashing in their silver ounces?
Yeah, I think it's probably government hoards. I don't think any silver gets exported from China, but I know Russia does have a large amount of silver, and they could be liquidating some of it for their financial needs. But the ETFs are pretty flat. You look at all the worldwide ETFs, and they haven't moved much at all over the last couple of years. They fluctuate small amounts, but nothing huge. So yeah, it's a good question, and I don't know, maybe JP Morgan's selling it.
Okay, in the people I've spoken to about the gold space at this event, they're saying that the US Federal Reserve, the moment and the timing of the rate cut that's anticipated this year could be pivotal for the gold price and gold equities. Do you expect a similar thing in the silver space?
Well, you can't have silver moving without gold moving. I think that ultimately silver does outperform gold, but we've not seen it yet. So, I think there's, what's the magic number maybe is 2,100, 2,150 on gold. And I think once we get up to those types of numbers, I think you will start to see silver move.
Because gold tends to move first, and then silver responds and blasts past.
That's right. And usually, a couple 100% difference, not just a couple percentage points. So if you see a $100 move on gold, which is about 5%, you'd probably see a 30% move on silver.
Okay, let's talk more specifically about First Majestic Silver. Last year, you just put out your production numbers, 26.9 million ounces of silver equivalent in 2023. Santa Elena had a very good year. How happy are you with the performance last year?
We ended the year on a very positive note. Santa Elena actually had its best quarter ever. It produced about 9 million ounces in the full year. And we expect Santa Elena is going to continually perform. We talk internally sometimes, more or less jokingly that, Santa Elena could become bigger than San Dimas. I doubt whether that's the case, but I'm just saying, San Dimas at 13 million and Santa Elena at 9 million. These are two very, very solid assets, and we'll continue to produce those kinds of numbers in 2024.
Last year, you also, in March, took the decision to put Jerritt Canyon on hold or on care and maintenance for the time being as you work through some of the issues there. What's the plan for Jerritt Canyon this year?
It's going to be all exploration. We just put our guidance out the other day. We're spending $35 million on exploration globally across the entire business. 10 million of that is going to Jerritt Canyon.
Okay. There's a lot of talk in the market about the perceived need for First Majestic to buy another big asset, potentially in Mexico to develop, to bring on stream, perhaps to fill the gap that Jerritt Canyon has created. Are you looking at a deal this year? Are you hoping to pull the trigger on a deal this year?
Well, you never know when deals are going to happen. And even if I did know that, I couldn't tell you. But are we always looking? Yes, we constantly look. We've got many NDAs signed in place with other companies. We're always kicking the tires. We're always watching news releases of juniors. We own a foothold in a handful of juniors already. But I think we really need another big silver mine in our portfolio. And that would really be, I think our shareholders would also appreciate that. And that is our focus.
And you could perhaps count the number of candidates on one hand with a deposit that's big enough to be a big silver mine.
Mm-hmm. They're not too, you could fill your portfolio up with gold mines all day long, but silver mines are just hard to find.
So it seems the company still really sees the attraction and need for silver. Going back in the past, you were one commodity, one country. People saw that bringing Jerritt Canyon in, gold in the United States was let's say a dilution of that policy. But now it seems you're going back to your roots, one commodity, one country. Silver's still the thing for First Majestic Silver.
Well, for sure, but don't forget, 50% of our revenues still come from gold. And gold is a very important part of our portfolio because it stabilizes the business. You said yourself that gold's at $2,000 and silver is having a hard time staying above 23. And we are obviously one of the more important names in the silver space. But to have that gold in our portfolio, it gives us that financial stability. So I'm glad we have some gold in our portfolio.
Okay, so what are some of the key objectives or targets for First Majestic Silver this year?
In 2024? Well, just maintaining San Dimas at its current level, hopefully growing upon Santa Elena. Exploration success, I think, is really important. Spending $35 million on exploration is not a small amount of money. We'll have over 20 rigs active throughout the business, and our geos are pretty excited about some specific targets that we're going after this year. So, this time next year in 2025, we hope to come out with some interesting news on the drilling of this current year.
And will this exploration, is that just to extend existing operations, extend the life of existing operations, or potentially could it see an expansion of some of your operations?
It could be an expansion. I think Santa Elena would be the one that would most likely, but we need to have another discovery in order for us to justify expanding it. But it doesn't need to be expanded at the current levels. It's producing almost 10 million ounces, and that's a pretty decent mine. And the cash flow that's coming from that operation is quite nice. So, but from a geological perspective, our drilling programs are really designed to not so much add ounces, but keep the ounces even. So we're producing 10 million ounces at Santa Elena, for example. We'd want to discover 10 million ounces in 2024's drill program. If the geological team is allowed to do that, that's a successful program. If we increase over that amount, then that's like obviously a bonus, but it's not it's not really the intention of the exploration program.
Okay, and in terms of the silver price and the overall silver market, what are your feelings or expectations for 2024?
Well, you asked me that last time you and I met, and I'm an optimist, and I'm also bullish. I'm bullish on silver, and I just can't for the life of me think that when you have a deficit as big as we're going to be seeing this year, that prices won't move. And with gold also improving, as you said earlier about interest rates changing, and that could impact gold prices, which I agree it will. It's got to drive silver up. So, I'll give you a $30 target on silver for the end of 2024.
Okay, well, let's hope so. Keith, best of luck with your exploration plans this year, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Good seeing you again. Thank you.
And this is Paul Harris for Kitco Mining at the Vancouver Resource Investor Conference. And if you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe.
Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference is brought to you by Snowline Gold.